Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin. Uh, I've been I'm with Arlan Feiles, singer, songwriter, producer, activist, and we've been friends. We've been friends since I embarked on my journalism, and I met Arlan early on, so that we're probably 14 years, give or take.
At
That's
least.
that's a long time in the world of Central Jersey, I guess. But there are interviews and there are interviews and there are interviews, but this, because it's been such a wonderful ride and journey with you, Arlen, and exposing me to your amazing music, your words, your commitment, your dedication, and the almost, ALMOSTS, the almost, because you were down there the 50th anniversary of the Selma March,
Yep.
and I should have, and I didn't. I should have gone with you, and that is number two on my list. Of number one is Woodstock. I mean, I could have been at Woodstock, and I didn't. And here I could have been with you for the
The
50th.
choices we make.
Oh, so, and we've been planning this thing pretty much a year. You're a busy guy, and you're promoting your new album, uh,
Yeah.
Diaspora, and we'll talk about that. But I touched my heart because it's been such a special time in my life knowing you, you've been part of my life, and I've been part of your life, and you've been part of my son and daughter-in-law's life because you were there at the proposal. Matter of fact,
The lakeside. Lakeside. The
that's
lakeside
right. The
proposal.
lakeside, you jumped out of a bush or something, and you had your guitar,
Yeah. And
and
and stood on a lily pad.
yeah, and you sang. I guess it was a Beatles song, right? Yes,
It
no.
was.
Yeah, it was a Beatles. So you've been such an integral part
We're
of
family.
it's family, and I remember, and Katie and my spending a couple days at the school there, learning that's been an indelible learning experience about autism and spectrum and stuff. So this is all quoting. I think it's the Declaration of Independence or something. It's now fitting and proper after we do this interview. It comes from, I think it's Declaration of fitting and proper that we do this interview and get caught up. This Johnny Carson monologue is officially done. That's what this has been. Although no joke.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da.
Yeah, yeah, no jokes. I still watch Johnny Carson all the time. Uh, anyway, why don't you do a little quick bio and background, and then we're going to jump in uh, Ralph Edwards style. All in file. This
Okay.
is your life.
I'll give you the short, long story.
Sure.
Um, I grew up in Studio City, California, Los Angeles. Um, my father is a pharmacist. You guys connected on that, I know. My mother was a dental hygienist turned film producer. I grew up, I always had a fondness for music. We sang around the piano. My dad played the piano. We'd sing the hits of the 70s and the 60s, Beatles, Elton John, uh, Neil Diamond, you know. Barbra Streisand was a big record on the house. All the great Jewish songwriters from the era filled the walls of the Philus house. And so I grew up wanting to be around music. I wanted to learn how to play so I could sing. I loved to sing. My dad taught me the chords out of the cheat book, and I started learning everything I could learn and writing songs not long after. Um, did some acting in Los Angeles growing up. I was a theater kid. I did a lot of theater work. Um, had a rock band, and that led me into the decision after high school. I graduated from the Los Angeles County High School of the Arts. I was the first graduating class. It continues to this day.
Wow.
Um, and from there, I took it on the road. I left Southern California. I went to Berkeley School of Music. I thought I was going to really become a serious player. Berkeley didn't have that in plan for me, although I did learn a great deal about composition and harmonic structure and music history, jazz history, which has all been a really important part of my growth as an artist. I'm really glad I had that foundation, even though I didn't become the piano player I wanted to be. Um, and I met some great musicians there, great world class guys. And we had a band there. We decided we were going to drop out of school and go to Miami, Florida. Joel, our guitarist, is from Miami. It had a burgeoning music scene on Miami Beach, which had been completely run down in the 80s. And music clubs started opening up all over Miami Beach. And so uh, quit school, went to Miami Beach. We started a band called Natural Causes that, after a few years, became quite popular in the
Yeah.
statewide. We won some national competitions, best rock band stuff, Tangeray Rock. The band was really loved. We played all over. It didn't last as long as I would have liked. And that uh, was when I met Tom Dowd, who is a wonderful producer. He had produced a few tracks for Natural Causes, the band. It didn't work out. I said, Tom, the band broke up. What am I going to do? Well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to make a record. He goes, okay, then let's make a record.
Wow.
And Tom got on the phone and called Chris Blackwell at Island Records. He agreed to sign me to the label.
Wow.
Tom would be the producer. And we made a great record. Um, very had good potential at that for the time period. And it didn't work out. There was, politics between Island and Polygram and this and that. So the album never did get released, and that's a shame too, because a couple tracks feature Levon Helm and Rick Danko and Garth from the band. So that's a huge unfortunate thing. But what a wonderful experience was that. Um, when the label fell apart, I said, "Well, I'm not from Miami. It's been a good trip. I think I did. I took the ride. That ended wonderfully, and then it was time to start over. I didn't have any roots really in Miami, so I went forward. Moved to New York City. Moved to Williamsburg back in the mid '90s. Was part of that burgeoning art and music thing that made Williamsburg somewhere I can't afford to live any longer. But there was great music. Um, I hosted music nights, the local venues. It was great. And I took a job at a place called Carol Music, which is a music rental, piano rental, rehearsal studios. My first day in New York, I picked up the paper. They still had papers, and I went through the jobs, and so I had said, looking for someone who could drive a truck that has knowledge of musical instruments.
Wow.
I said, well, I could drive a truck. I'll just tell them I could drive a truck. I got the job. I was driving a 22-foot, uh,
Wow.
you know, truck van, delivering equipment all over to Aretha Franklin and the Beach Boys. um, Taking mirrors off everywhere, every road, every street I drove down. It was a lot of fun and many, many wonderful musical experiences through Carol Music. All the great jazz guys used to come through: Max Roach, McCoy Tyner, Freddie Hubbard, Elvin Jones. It's just it was. the the watching these people work, these geniuses, they're legends. Watching their rehearsal process, it really spoke to me, and to, kind of, I was getting more into producing my own stuff. Um, I was recording live bands at this venue next door to Carroll called Tobacco Road, where I met my wife, Katie. Um, she used to come into the club, and uh, that obviously would turn into something special, which would, she was a Rutgers student from Edison, New Jersey. And I was well on my way, destined to become a Jersey guy. And for the last 25 years, we've built a family, and I've continued to release
Yeah.
tons of music, and and here we are. And
Yeah.
and I met you when, along the way in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. I started journalism 2011. That's when I started my first trip to Asbury Park to cover some music and stuff. And that was when my journalism was somewhere along the line, I was introduced to you, and the rest is, history. Uh,
yeah, we had a an instant
it
connection.
was instant connection.
So
Why? Well,
it's
because
it's got to be the Jewish thing, though. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
but it
Um,
was you know what? You were a troubadour, and you're a troubadour, and it's funny that movie. Uh, the movie's out now. Dylan's story, and it's funny. I close my eyes I and of course I loved early Dylan, and his words, and I always used to in my mind close my eyes, blink my eyes, and looking at you and comparing you to Bob Dylan because you're a troubadour. Well, yeah.
uh, we share an intention.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, and to change and make things better, and that's what you are about. And you do a harmonica, and close your eyes, and it's kind of like that spirit of Bob Dylan, that wonderful early spirit, and so that was one of these things that uh, drew me and impressed me. And 14 years later, still impresses me because you're pure and you haven't changed, kind of thing. Um, there is one thing, and I just mentioned that to you before we went on air. We were BSing for like 90 minutes before we went on air.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
They're
you,
like, oh yeah, we're supposed to do an interview. Huh?
yeah, yeah, and that's why we're doing this now. But you actually had a gig on the TV show Night Court, right?
Yeah, I did. I did. I made an appearance. I was, the delivery boy. I was 17 years old, and it was an episode. Dan, the lawyer, John, Larroquette, right?
Right.
Um, the episode featured, the storyline was that, Dan, who is, the lover guy and always hitting on the ladies, was, suffering from impotence. And through the course of the show, and it was quite funny, he was, doing, you know, gaff gigs, pratfalls and stuff, all these like different things to cure his, um, problem. And he was eating raw eggs, and he was doing all this stuff. And at one point, I walk into the courtroom and I say, "Who ordered the 2 dozen raw oysters?" So that was the next gag for, all the things he was trying to do to cure his impotence. And so he's like, in the very John Larroquette style, choking down oysters and stuff. And it was, uh, quite funny.
It was funny, and it's floating around on YouTube, and I wanted,
Yeah.
and I've seen it, and it's just great, and I keep watching it because I know that guy, and it was kind of funny.
It was a lot of fun. You work on those shows for a whole week. You get there on Monday, and
Oh wow,
there's wardrobe things, but everyone sits around a table. It's just like you hear these guys say. We sit around the table, we read through the script. Um, then they would, start blocking out the scenes. They would rehearse on the stage set, all for this is when they were doing live shows all the time, The Friday night would come around, and now we're shooting it in front of a live audience. And everything is, the whole week's work of um, preparation and line changes, lighting, and um it's a lot of fun. It's a
Yeah.
great week, and you get to know these people, like, which is great, it's fun.
Funny, a few years ago, I guess I got bored being a senior citizen, so I went to Central Casting in New York, uh, and I signed up. And literally days after I signed up, I got a gig. They were doing a pilot for a new TV show called New Amsterdam, a doctor show, and they needed me to be, like an extra for the thing, and they were filming it, I think, at Bellevue. So I said, "What the hell? It's an experience," and I did it, but not like you. They did two shoots. Each one was about 5 hours. One and
Yeah.
it, literally, and by the way, the whole thing was the opening montage for the thing, and it was 10 hours for a 2 minute thing. Uh,
Wow.
and and at the end of the day, after sitting around and standing around and all of that, they brought you upstairs, for supper after 10 hours. And I was last in line, as I always am. And by the time I got up uh, to the food, there was no food left. So I then quit my acting career. I'm done. Done. So, this is there's a lot of this question is chock full of stuff. I'm becoming a I'm becoming a singer-songwriter, and you have causes and you have discoveries. Can you talk about that, some of your early songs, your early albums, leading into leading into one of the most amazing things you've done, your rediscovery of Viola Liuzzo. And
Hmm.
people don't know she was the first woman to die in the civil rights movement. So this
The
is
only,
the only. So this is a
as
big. So why don't you tackle all this? Because it's such a
that's a
fascinating.
lot. That is a big question.
That's a big question.
As soon as I started writing songs, I think the reason why I wanted to write songs is because I found it such an incredible tool to share ideas, um, social causes, economic causes. I was a huge fan of John Lennon and Bob Marley and The Clash, and and all, all the kind of artists that um, put their message forward. You can tell that the important part was actually what they were trying to do with the music, not the actual playing of the music. And that was kind of I see that this is a tool, and I'm good with this tool. Maybe I can use it to connect with communities and with and people, and share ideas. Um, big themes in my songs are hope, equality, peace. Um, I have voting rights has been a real front thing that I've advocated for. Um, I've always believed that the system isn't working because not enough of us are participating. Um, Too many people, yes, the system's frustrating. They get angry, and they decide that their vote doesn't count. And it's kind of, sure, if you don't vote, it definitely will not count. You can guarantee that result. I've tried to spend my career encouraging more and more people to engage with the system, to vote, to get other people to vote. Um, and I've seen change happen because of it. When people do, I and I know it's true, but if everybody were to vote, I think we'd end up on the right side of history. Um, that's my optimism. I think that no participation is a bigger problem. It allows those who to game the system. You can game the system if people are not aware of how it works and they're not involved, you know. And so that led me to writing about stuff, which leads to Viola. I had heard her story. She was marching for voting rights, which Dr. King was a very inspirational figure to me. And this kind of side story of the civil rights movement, which I would come to learn is far more um, significant um, to the entire movement's realization of a civil rights act and a voting rights act. Um, and it was sadly inspired by the death of this woman, Viola Liuzzo, who was a white woman from Detroit. She, I think, was the first white person to join the Detroit chapter of the NAACP. Her best friend was a black woman. And when she had heard Dr. King call for, all people of conscience come, to march on the Capitol. And excuse the noise, there are some workers
That's all
in the
right. Don't
house
worry about
here.
it. We're very informal here. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
And so I had written this song. She inspired me. I wrote this song to honor her, Viola. She put everything on the line. She went to Selma. She marched to Montgomery. She then volunteered to drive marchers between the Capitol and Selma, those who couldn't make the whole journey. Um, and on one of these trips between the Capitol and Selma, she was ran off the road by a car full of Klansmen who pulled her out of her vehicle and murdered her on the side of the road there. And the death had shocked the nation at the time. And um, it moved Congress to finally act. And Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act that changed the world, changed America. And uh, it was her sacrifice that was kind of the last straw that broke. Sadly, it had to be, a white woman. Plenty of black people had been beaten and murdered. But the realization that I think that the philosophy was spreading out to outside. The Jewish community had always marched very closely with Dr. King. And um, you know, change happened. So I wanted to honor her story that wasn't very well known.
Yeah.
And I've sang it countless times. Her family ended up hearing the song. And they had written me beautiful letters thanking me for honoring their mother, and they invited me to come with the family down to Selma for the 50th anniversary celebration. And we were there with other dignitaries, and a million people
Yeah.
all trying to march over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was quite a remarkable
Yeah.
experience
We've been there.
to be with her family, her 5 kids,
Kids.
um, and really feel like I'd know her. We've stayed very close. I've actually appeared with them all over the country at different events that were honoring Viola. They would always invite me to come and perform the song. They would tell people that I was their brother. And I really learned, what I learned from it, I think we discussed it earlier, is that you just never know where things are going to take you. And when I released that song, I would have never known
Yeah.
that would afford me these kind of
Right.
incredible life experiences. I played the song at a show. A young black woman had written an article about it. It just happened to be Martin Luther King Day the next day, and she had written about my song. She had never heard of Viola,
Wow.
and she wrote about it on Martin Luther King Day.
Wow.
And Sally Liuzzo, Viola's youngest daughter, had her Google alerts set for any time her mother was mentioned in the national press. And that's how she found out about me in the song and wrote to me on Facebook
Wow.
um, to
Wow.
share her
Wow.
feelings, you know.
Yeah.
And I just talked to her, just talked to her yesterday. They're the oldest, Penny. She's in bad shape. Um, and Sally, she couldn't get to see her sister because she had no gas in her car. And I'm like, Sally, I'm Venmoing you $30. Go see your sister. Tell her I love her. um, and so she was able to. They're very poor. They were treated very badly by the civil rights movement. Um, uh, there was a lot of resistance that she should even be considered a martyr
Wow.
for the cause. That sentiment has changed gradually through the years. Um, Obama even mentioned her in his inauguration speech.
Wow.
So her story's become, but her family, who would refuse to take any money to speak on her, and they traveled all over the world. Oftentimes, they would go to check out of a hotel to find out that the people that were supposed to have paid for their hotel room just disappeared on them, leaving them with bills. That happened once to us, and we were in where were we? Louisiana, somewhere. Anyways, we were all checking out of the hotel, and I'd paid for my own way to be a part of this thing, but they got stuck with a bill, and they were like, they had no money. It was
Right.
like, but they would go again to the next one, and they're sweet, lovely people. I love them. They're great, and it's been incredibly enriching in my
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
through kind of my art, kind of made it manifested a a whole real life thing.
We went, you and I, we did Danny Coleman's um Rock on Radio. We went down to South Jersey, and it was in a place that um there was a thing on the wall. There was a poster on the wall. People, she would, I forgot, oh, it escapes me. She was religion wise, she was, what am I digging at? She was ugh, she was an intellectual, Viola. And so she was in this intellectual group of people who were all scientists, anyway, there was her picture when we were in South Jersey, you and I,
Yeah,
and it was so impactful.
universalist.
That's right. She was a universalist, which is and it's made up of all these amazing.
Yeah, they've taken great pride in her
Yeah,
Unitarian
yeah, yeah.
past.
Unitarian, and yes, she was a. It's funny, 20 years ago, I took one of those psychological tests online, and it said I was a Unitarian, uh, uh, whatever,
Soul.
yeah, soul, my soul, whatever. Um, I just want to go off topic. It's a cute question, and I borrowed it from one of my favorite journalists. So here's the thing, and you could add to it, but so here's the thing: excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
That's a tough question.
It's a tough question, and there could be a few. There's no rules here, Arlen.
But maybe my great grandfather. I mean, I'd love to see and talk to Tom Dowd again. I would love to show him what I've done with what he taught me. Um, I don't know. I feel like I'd want to talk to people I hate. You know, like I'd want to sit down with like Hitler and snap it out of him.
No, actually, he was beyond that. He wasn't
It
normal.
was, I know, but like that's like what would you got to make some good? You got to make some
Yeah,
good choices here.
yeah, of course you got to make some good choices, but
You
he's
got to go and
beyond.
say, hey, maybe
He was
maybe had I
beyond.
known him when he was a kid, something would have been different.
Maybe
Maybe I'd want to meet, like 12-year old.
maybe get to him early on.
Be his baseball coach.
Yeah,
Teach him about pride and and good teamsmanship, like I do with my son. The
yeah,
most important thing is that we're kind to each other. That's what I tell them at every practice.
that's cool.
Um, so I don't know. That's a hard question. They're so,
I know, but the grandfather thing is a great answer, and I'd probably do the same thing. By the way, I showed you my grandfather's thing when he came here, and I'm named after him, and he's very much a part of my life. I never knew him, but and I'd have to say the same thing. My grandfather, because he's been with me every step of the way. Long story. All right, back to work. Uh, you do amazing things. I marvel at you in so many different ways. But I also marvel at you and your European tours.
uh,
Talk about that. I know in one of the recent tours you like almost sold out this place in Germany. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
yeah.
Talk about it. How did you get started in doing these European tours?
I'll tell you, it is not an easy thing to get a booking agent
Yeah.
anywhere. Um, and so I was very fortunate. I had a good buddy, great songwriter. Greg Trooper was his name. I don't know if you ever saw him
Yeah,
play.
I did. I
He
did.
was a Jersey guy. He lived in Long Island, but he had um, built himself a nice career writing songs. He made records. He was recorded by like Tim McGraw. I don't know, like huge country stars.
Wow.
Very well established and somebody I admired greatly. And would kind of try to. I'd make sure I was opening up for him if he was could be in the area, so I could bend his ear a little bit before the show. I knew we'd have maybe some opportunity to sit and talk. And so I kind of viewed him as a mentor. I'm not sure that he felt like one, but um, he was a good guy, and I would send him my material and ask for his opinions. Um, Sadly, he would get sick, cancer, and he seemed to be on the mend. He was talking about going back on the road. And I'd put a call. Hey, I'm so glad to see that you're playing again. That's great. You know, um, what else is going on? I'm like, you going to Europe, blah blah blah. And he's like, I'm not going this year. I said, I'd really, I wish I could do that, because I love how that you can do that. And he was like, well, I'll tell my booking agent about you. And I was like, you would do that? He said, sure. I was like, thanks, man. 5 days later, he passed away.
Wow.
Apparently, he had gotten quite sick again,
Wow.
to say the least. And the last thing he left me a gift. A couple weeks after he passed away, I got a call from his booking agent, and they said they wanted to bring me out to Europe for some shows.
Wow.
They loved Greg. They were very close. They had been booking him for years, and uh, excuse me, just for 1 minute.
It's
You
fine.
guys
Go
have to
ahead.
leave the room for a minute, please. Okay. The whispering is difficult. My parents are visiting from out of town. Um, where was I?
So so you're he's booking your
Oh, Greg,
tour.
yeah, they
You're
call me
booking.
up, and so I go to Europe, and I'm playing in little pubs and a few like some community centers, you know. The turnouts were nice because they have a really nice community of, you know, in the Netherlands, all the places they book. Meanwhile, I've been going back for the last 5, 6
Great.
years.
Wow.
And it's been great. It's been growing. The venues I'm playing are getting bigger and nicer. I did 10 shows in 12 days this last tour.
Wow.
100 to 200 seat venues
These are
that
great.
mostly sold out. Um, and just have built true friendships with some of the people that I get to see when I go back year after year. Dear friends, and expanded my fan base, I guess you could say.
No, it's great.
Um, and it's always great to go there because it's hard to play in the States. From an independent artist level, most of the clubs they don't want to pay anything. So I focus on recording my albums when I'm here,
Yeah, yeah.
and I do, you know, events. And well, Europe's been an incredible experience. Yeah.
Which is a segue. I want to make sure we don't run out of time, and then I would love you to talk about. Uh,
Yeah, we could do a part two for this, you know.
oh, by the way,
I talk too much on every question, I
no.
feel like.
By the way, there's a part two, and there's a part three, and there's a part four. I'm kind of, editing it because you and I we have this history. We just talk,
Yeah, it's
and that's nice, and we talk. So yes, there will be. I mean, I sit in this chair 12 hours a day, Arlen, but I
right.
want to at least talk about diaspora, talk a little bit
Hmm.
about that. And I did read, doing my homework as a good journalist, that this was number nine on the Euro Americana chart, which is pretty cool. Because as I read, Willie Nelson was also number nine, something like that.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
this
we
is
were
great.
tied for the spot.
Yeah, so a little bit about the content and about the emotion and the feeling of this. Um,
Yeah, it's hard not to go on and on about it. But my new album that you shared there, Diaspora, is probably my most personal work. And that says a lot because most of my work is personal. Um, and more about my faith and my culture, my heritage. Um, you know, being a Jew and the diaspora. And the record is about my family story. It's about the story of Jews escaping yet another round of annihilation that we periodically through history from its origin must suffer. Um, and at a time right now where there's so much going wrong in the Middle East, and as a pacifist, I'm extremely offended by the atrocities committed by both fighting groups on in this. Been met with more anti-Semitism online and through my music than I have because I'm open about my Jewishness, um, and I've been completely just shocked by the amount of terrible things that have been said to me and my family and friends who were Jews and had to endure not just um, you know, just the idea that people are so much hating Israel, a place that is ingrained into our psyches as Jews. You know, it's like it is as much a part of Judaism as the prayers and as a it's the center, it's the center focus, right? And it's hurtful and it's confusing when, you know, there's so much anger being directed towards, you know, something that's so meaningful to you. And I was starting to feel that, it's like having conversations. I can trying to convince people that I'm a real Jew. And those conversations got harder to manage online. And so I decided to put that energy towards a search for my own, reclaiming my own pride and humanity, uh, being a Jew. And it really manifested in this collection of songs that um, incorporate a lot of the Jewish harmonies and harmonic structures that are ingrained in my, you know, my mind, that speak to my chorused musical senses. A lot of that I let kind of shine on this one, and just told the story. And it's a hard story. It's hard to listen to, but it's also quite beautiful and redeeming, I hope, for people who listen to it. And so far, it's been getting a lot of wonderful um, uh, feedback, which is, you know, obviously that's um,
Yeah.
it feels good when you do something that
Yep.
is doing what you intended it to do.
Perfect. Uh, where is this stuff on like on Amazon and
Oh yeah, it's on all the
okay,
digital.
okay,
Yeah,
fine, okay. Um, yeah, I showed you I got connected with a cousin last night and she sent me this thing about my grandfather just last night and you know he came here in 1904 to
hmm
America. Why? Because it's you know he was being persecuted in Russia and they came here and that's why I'm here because they came here. So I identify with diaspora because it's part of my uh just lightening just to lighten as we wind down because Noah is in the future.
yeah. There's a child that's going to get picked up at school, but
Right.
I
So
promise we will talk more. We can do. Uh, we should do more.
all right.
This has
So
been
you know
this.
what?
We haven't done enough. We didn't touch on enough.
We didn't touch on enough. So you know what? This is just a great place. There's a ton more
All
stuff
right, to be continued.
to be continued, and this will
Yeah.
actually take us from the heaviness of diaspora to the questions of the LA Lakers next time.
Oh man, what a mess.
And in your honor and thinking of you,
I'm taking Noah to his. Oh, is he? No, he's not here. I'm picking him up. I'm taking Noah to his first baseball game, Dodgers Mets at
oh
City
wow,
Field,
wow,
and with my dad. The three
wow,
of us
that's
are going.
great. Hey,
So
listen, I grew up. I was a Sandy Koufax and Duke Snyder guy. I've been a
you had to
Dodger
be.
fan before, you know, before they schlepped out to LA. I was a Dodger fan. Uh,
Yeah.
but we're
Okay.
ending this now.
Yeah.
To be continued. We got a lot of stuff to do. To be
Sounds good.
continued. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't
Thank
leave.
you.
Do a 30-second wrap. All in this was sumptuous.
It's always good to talk
One of
to
my favorite words. So
you.
to be continued.